TC-808 Jet Black Casting Resin. In this tutorial we'll be covering the basic handling tips for using the TC-808 black resin. This is an intrinsically colored pure black or jet black casting resin that's ideal for casting parts that are going to be finished to look like a metallic surface or anything that needs a black background color. Now the part B contains the black pigment, so you want to make sure you shake that up before each use so that doesn't settle out and give you a lighter color. Also, 808 Jet Black is 1:1 by weight ratio. You'll notice the part B has a little bit more material than the part A, and that's because they have two different specific gravities. Now, ideally you want to cast into a silicone mold. That will minimize your need for mold release and improve your painting later on. Anytime you use a mold release, that can inhibit the paint's ability to stick to the resin. Now again, the 808 Jet Black is 1:1 mix ratio by weight. And as I mentioned earlier, you want to make sure you shake that up each time you use it, because if that pigment settles out, you'll get more like the traditional 808, which is more of a white color, or in this case, it'll convert more to like a charcoal gray or a light gray color. So make sure you shake that up and suspend the pigment each time before you measure out your part B. Now here we're measuring out about 150 grams of part A and 150 grams of part B. And always a good idea whenever you're working in small amounts to make sure you're using an accurate gram scale. Remember, if you're working in really small amounts, like 10 grams of A and 10 grams of B, if you were using a gram scale that has a margin of error of, say, a gram or 2 grams, you could be wildly off ratio. So make sure you're using an accurate gram scale, really accurate if you're working in really small amounts. Now, also, a quick word about the working environment. Here, this particular resin sets up in about 2 minutes, and that's at 70 degrees or room temperature. So you want to make sure that you have adequate time to mix this and pour this into your mold within that working time. So here we've got 2 molds that each take just a few ounces, and we're going to mix that up, and you'll notice it doesn't take long to get it mixed properly. If you have good mixing equipment, it shouldn't take more than about 20 or 30 seconds to get everything thoroughly mixed. Now, like our other urethane formulas, any polyurethane casting resin like this is mass sensitive. So anytime you're working with a large mass of resin, be aware that that will act as a natural accelerator. So be sure to get that mixed up and poured out into your mold as soon as possible. And again, real important to be mindful of your temperature in your working environment. We like to keep our shop fairly cool. It's at about 72, 73 degrees. And I also keep equipment on hand to measure the humidity, just in case that might be a problem. So ideally, you want low humidity and a room temperature of about 70 degrees. Now, as I mentioned before, the working time of 808 is about 2 minutes at room temperature. The demold time is going to depend on the cross-section of your part, but typically about 30 minutes for a part like this. If you're dealing with parts with a really thin cross-section, I would give it more like 45 minutes to an hour. But remember that parts with a thick mass, like several inches thick, will cure much faster than parts with a very thin cross-section. Now, one of the nice things about the Jet Black is because it is a true black, we can easily use that as a base material to do dry brushing over the top to get metallic finishes. This is great for weapon props like knives and guns and things that have a black base color. And we can just dry brush some metallic colors like our Silver B to get some very realistic metal finishes. And we can also use this as a backup for cold cast bronze. Now what we're doing here is the dusting method. This is just a quick overview. Those of you more curious about more of the cold casting techniques, I'd recommend that you check out some of our other videos on our channel on cold cast bronze techniques. But essentially what we're doing is using a soft silicone mold here to grab the metal powder and then dump the excess back into the jar. And then we're going to pour in our 808 Jet Black resin. And what that does is it bonds to that thin veneer of bronze powder stuck to the inside surface of the mold. And when these parts are demolded, once that resin completely cures, then the bronze powder, or whatever metal powder we're using, becomes bonded to the surface of the resin. And you have to be careful not to polish too aggressively when using this technique, but this is great for small cold cast resin pieces. And again, this is by no means a full treatment of the cold cast bronze process, so be sure to check our other videos on that process. But essentially, once we're at that point, we have that bronze powder bonded to the surface of our resin part, ready to shine that up, and for that we use 4/0 steel wool. And just light burnishing on the surface will bring out the shine of that bronze, and then we can use colored waxes or some of our other patina materials to give it the character of a real classic bronze. So there you have the basic use of the TC-808 jet black resin. And just remember important points here that as with any polyurethane resin, it is mass sensitive, so you want to make sure you take care to allow for that in larger castings. And also be aware that any urethane resin is very moisture sensitive, so work in a room temperature, low humidity environment with clean mixing equipment. And of course, an accurate gram scale. And of course, as always, you can find the materials to do cold cast bronze, the silicones, and of course the new TC-808 jet black resin. They're all available on our web store at brickintheyard.com. And you can check the video description. We'll have more information about the products we used. And be sure to check out our other videos. And thanks for watching.